Welcome to BamfordRose and another question of the week. In this week's question of the week, it's should I buy this classic Vanquish? Someone thinking about buying a classic Vanquish is one of the most common emails I get, often with a link to a Vanquish advertised in the classified somewhere. Normally, the advice given after a quick flip through of the pictures and a read of the advert is no, don't touch with a barge pole. But I was recently sent a link to this Vanquish. It's a late 2007 Vanquish S. It's only had 8,400 miles put on it, and it's up for £108,500. Looking at the pictures of the exterior, then you can tell this is a fantastically well kept car. You know, if anyone that knows Vanquish, if you look at the headlamps there's no UV degradation on them at all. Bodywork looks super sharp. It's got an extensive service history, but as we all know, stamps in the book are not really what's important. What's important are the notes from the mechanic, the raw service sheets, because you don't want those ticks in traffic light coloured boxes. You want actual description of what someone sees when they are inspecting your car. But, you know, that is an extremely thorough service history for the very few miles covered. And then look at the interior. This looks absolutely as new, beautiful. And someone has even put some red S's on the headrests. A little aftermarket edition, but I think that looks quite nice. It's got the later level dashboard with the tablet screen in the middle. And as far as classic Vanquish S goes, it just doesn't get any better than this. But as good as that car looks to be, it is a Vanquish. And that does mean that you're likely to get to know your AA man on first name terms, and you better get to know a garage really well to help you look after it, because it's going to have the odd breakdown and it's going to have a few expensive repair bills. That's a Vanquish and there's no escaping that. Someone hankering after a classic Vanquish, then I normally reply back with a link in the classified to a new Vanquish for sale. So in comparison to the classic Vanquish here, we've got a 2012 Vanquish II. This is going to be a 6-speed. It's got 31,000 miles. Now it's up at £70,000. What an absolute steal at that price. Beautiful interior. You can sit inside that interior and feel like you sat in a really, really nice, modern, yet classic interior, whereas your classic Vanquish is not going to be as good as that with all the Ford switchgear and the older styling that it has. Then at the other end, we've got this 2016 S, which is going to be your 8-speed with 23,000 miles on, going for £105,000. So £105,000 on the newer Vanquish S, or would you go for the classic Vanquish? Plus sides of the new Vanquish is you're still in the Halo model. You know, that's as good as it got for a normal car which wasn't a special edition. You've got the V12 engine for great GT cruising and that symphony of sound, and you're unlikely in the newer Vanquish to have to get to know your breakdown man on first name terms, and you're probably guaranteed a few easy years of servicing that newer Vanquish in a workshop, rather than the classic Vanquish having many expensive repairs and probably a few breakdowns. Typically a Vanquish Classic purchaser is going to be over 50, and they're after that classic car experience, which I can definitely relate to. But the classic Vanquish is a car of this century. It's still very modern. It's not like a classic car purchase of this 1989 Vantage that I feature here. Are you going to get a real old school ownership experience from that classic Vantage? Smell of fuel, carburetors, it's just going to feel a beast to drive. Whereas the classic Vanquish has got fuel injection and it does drive and feel like a modern day car. Meaning that if you were thinking of going for the classic styled Vanquish over a new Vanquish, just check that you are actually getting that heritage and classic ownership experience that you think or know that you want to chase. Now, don't get me wrong, Vanquish Classic is an absolutely brilliant car, but the ownership experience does come with some considerations. Many of the parts are becoming obsolete, and in the independent world we're having to try and resource parts from other sources than the factory to keep these cars going. Now, you could say that about the classic 1989 Vantage, but there's an independent heritage network there that spent years in sourcing replacement parts that doesn't rely on keeping those cars on the road from parts from the factory. Classic Vanquish values are a bit disappointing. After all, this was the last Newport Pagnell classic Aston, hand-built Aston ever built, and really they should be trading for more money. But perhaps the trickiness of keeping them on the road, Clarkson's report about the gear shift, high running costs, likelihood of breaking down, and the car potentially being in the workshop more than your own garage has probably meant that interest has waned a little bit and prices reflect that. But if you've thought about it and you definitely want to go the classic Vanquish route, after discounting this beautiful 8-speed new Vanquish, then the advice is to buy the absolute best you can. And that example of the £108,000 car is probably about the best car that I've seen for quite some time. Now, I really like Vanquish. When you drive them, they're more of a classic car, so you know that you're not going fast on A roads. It's all about GT cruising, opening up the throttle when you're on a straight and just experiencing the V12 engine and just doing a bit of laid back cruising. But as much as I like the car, then owners definitely have to get their head round the ownership experience of breakdowns, repair bills, and waiting for parts because they are unavailable. Perhaps those facts and people like me making videos talking about that means that prices are dropping because they are only being bought by absolute die-hard enthusiasts. Which is why I big up the upper and better end of the market, because like that 2007 108k car, you're giving yourself the best opportunity of having the nicest ownership experience of a nearly new looking car, and hopefully it's not going to break down too much. What I definitely advise against are cars at the bottom end of the market, like this car trading at £55,000. Now, the car looks okay on the surface, bodywork looks okay, but it's got 93,500 miles on. Now, somebody is going to spend an absolute fortune in maintenance to get the car up to that sort of mileage, and perhaps there's maintenance still left to do. And on a Vanquish, it's very easy to put one inside a workshop that needs maintenance and end up having a £20,000 bill. So that 55,000 car in reality could turn into a £70,000 or £80,000 car, and then perhaps you might wish you'd have bought maybe a better S, or thought twice about the classic Vanquish altogether and got yourself into the new Halo Vanquish, either a 6-speed or an 8-speed. So if you were in the market for a Vanquish, which would it be? Would it be the older classic Vanquish of £55,000, or would you be going for that 6-speed Vanquish up at £70,000? Or if it was at the upper end, would you be going for that beautiful late S at £108,000, or the Vanquish II 8-speed S at £105,000? Hope you like this video. As always, it really helps us if you can click us a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us your Vanquish stories in the comment section. We'll see you on the next question of the week.